Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we're diving into something really powerful. You're not separate from the version of you that already has everything you've ever wanted. In fact, you're deeply connected to that version. It already exists. Not in your imagination, but as a frequency, and the universe, or the quantum field, is simply waiting for a signal from you. But here's the twist. That signal isn't just about what you want. It's about who you choose to be. Right now, not tomorrow, not after you've healed, and not after you've learned how to manifest. The dream version of you is already out there, living the life you're only imagining. You're linked to that version through something called quantum entanglement. So why don't you feel connected to it yet? If your life feels stuck or your goals seem far away, it's not because those dreams are impossible. It's because your current identity, your state of being, is still tied to a version of you that doubts, delays, or self-sabotages. The moment you change how you see yourself, not just in your thoughts, but in your energy, everything around you starts to shift. Here's the truth. Most people never realize how this really works. They spend their lives trying to change things from the outside, working harder, struggling more, chasing success. Even on a spiritual path, many people make the same mistake. They try to visualize their way into a new life without changing the identity that's holding them back. But this video isn't just another talk about the law of attraction. This is a deeper look, a breakdown of how reality really works, and a guide to what's called collapsing timelines. This is where two powerful ideas come together: quantum entanglement and quantum jumping. Quantum entanglement explains why your energy affects the world around you. It shows how your current state influences your outcomes, and why even your subconscious patterns send signals into the universe. You're constantly broadcasting a signal, not through your words but through your vibration. It's about how your identity lines up with what's possible. Quantum jumping, on the other hand, is often misunderstood. It's not about magic or escaping reality. It's about realigning your identity so you can shift into a version of life where your dreams are already true. These versions of you already exist, waiting to be seen, felt, and lived. And here's something fascinating. You've already experienced this. Remember a moment when you made a strong decision and suddenly everything changed? That was a jump. Or when you had a deep gut feeling that you're meant for something more? That wasn't your imagination. It was your future self breaking through. In the quantum world, time isn't a straight line. It's layered. So your future self can actually reach back to you, just as you can reach forward. You're in a constant feedback loop with the version of you who already succeeded, and that connection is active right now. That's the real secret. The universe doesn't need you to struggle. It needs you to be clear. It needs your energy to match what you're asking for. Not by saying it, but by living it. In this video, we're going to break down what manifestation really is and show you step by step how quantum entanglement makes timeline jumping not only possible, but inevitable when you know how to align with it. And no, this isn't about just sitting and visualizing. Have you ever felt a moment, even for just a second, where you knew you were meant for something greater? What do you think was happening in that moment? This isn't about wishing, hoping, or trying harder. It's about identity collapse and frequency alignment. Because reality, it's not just something that happens to you, it's code. And in the next part of this video, I'll show you exactly how quantum entanglement works, not just with tiny particles in science labs, but in your own life. We'll touch on the science, yes, but more importantly, I'll explain how this helps make sense of everything that's ever felt off or stuck in your reality. Because the version of you who already has everything you desire, that version is already connected to you. So why haven't you jumped into that life yet? Quantum entanglement isn't just a theory. It's one of the most well-documented, yet least understood phenomena in modern physics. In simple terms, it means that two particles, once connected, stay connected, and if one changes, the other changes instantly, no matter how far apart they are. Even Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. But here's what most people never ask. If particles can behave like that, why not you? You are not just a single particle floating in space. You are a living, breathing field of consciousness. And just like those particles, you've been entangled, not only with people and places, but with different versions of yourself across infinite timelines. Versions that made different choices, that followed their gut instead of fear, that healed instead of hiding, that jumped instead of waiting. You are not cut off from those versions. You're either vibrating in sync with them or out of sync. And that vibration determines the version of reality you keep experiencing. But here's the glitch. Most people stay entangled with the version of themselves that is still just surviving, still afraid, still holding back. Not because they want to, but because they were trained to, through repetition, through trauma, through identity loops so deep, they no longer even recognize them as loops. And what you stay entangled with, you reinforce, you broadcast, you collapse into your physical reality. So when someone says, "I've tried to manifest, but nothing works," the problem isn't that they're not trying hard enough. The problem is that their unconscious signal is still being sent from the version of them that doubts, that hesitates, that doesn't truly believe it's possible. And the quantum field, it's strict. It doesn't respond to your wishes. It doesn't care about begging, and it certainly doesn't react to 5 minutes of positive thinking. The field responds to frequency, and your frequency is shaped by what you embody every moment of every day. You are the observer, and the observer collapses the timeline. But the real question is, which version of you is doing the observing? That's the question most people never ask. And it's the reason most people never make the jump. Because jumping isn't something you do, it's something you become. You can't quantum jump into your dream life if you're still living from the identity of someone who doesn't feel worthy of that life. You can't shift timelines while making choices based on fear, lack, or self-doubt. The field doesn't care what you say, it cares what you're aligned with. It responds to what you reinforce through your actions, your focus, and your energy. And sometimes, the version of you that already has everything is trying to pull you forward. You feel it in dreams, in flashes of clarity, in those strange moments when life feels thin, and you sense something just beyond the veil. You catch glimpses of that other life. Not because you're imagining it, but because it's bleeding through. The connection is already active. So the real question is, how long will you keep ignoring the version of you that already made it? In the next part of this video, I'm going to show you how to begin re-entangling your field, not just through belief or mindset, but through something deeper, intentional identity collapse. This is how we jump. This is how we move. This is how we stop looping in the same patterns and finally start shifting. But before we go there, pause with me for a moment. If this message is hitting something inside you, if you feel like you're not just learning something new, but remembering something you already knew deep down, that's not a coincidence. That's entanglement activating. It doesn't show up as a new idea. It shows up as a deep recognition, a feeling, a knowing. So if something inside you moved while watching this, do me a favor, hit subscribe. Not for me, but for you. For the version of you that sips ready to come online. Then, head to the comments and tell me something real. What timeline are you ready to collapse? Not the one you want, the one you're done with. Name it, witness it. That's the first step to letting it go. Now, are you ready to meet the method? Here's the truth. You've been entangled with a version of yourself that doubts, that delays, that settles. But the version of you who's already made the leap, they're not somewhere far away. They're already observing, already waiting. The only reason you haven't fully become them is because the identity you're currently collapsing keeps pulling you back into the same old movie. It's time to rewrite the observer. You see, in every single moment, you are choosing who is behind your eyes. But most people don't realize that. They think they are their thoughts, their habits, their personality. But all of that, that's just software. What most people forget, you are the one choosing the operating system, and you can reboot at any time. This is the key to quantum jumping. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about choosing to stop observing your life from the version of you that's still tied to limitation. The jump doesn't happen through effort or action. It happens through collapse. So how do we begin? Let's just start with what you bits not going to do. Used to not going to visualize. Used to not going to chant. You're not going to close your eyes and pretend you're in a better life. Not yet. That's what the old self does. It tries to escape. But jumping isn't about escaping. It's about reclaiming. And it starts with one thing: awareness. Ask yourself this question, right now, without flinching. Who is the version of me that's currently choosing this life? What do they believe? What are they afraid of? What stories are they still carrying about what's possible? And how do they talk to themselves when no one else is around? Feel into it. You'll notice a certain energy, a pattern, maybe a tightness in your throat, or a heaviness in your chest. That's not random. That's the imprint of your current observer, and whether you realized it or not, you've been collapsing reality through that version of you for years. Now comes the real question, and it might be the most important one you ever ask yourself. Am I willing to let that version of me die? Because that's what a jump really is. It's not a leap across space and time. It's dice. A funeral. A quiet, conscious, sacred death of the self that can no longer carry your future. And here's the hard truth. Most people aren't willing to let go. Not because that old version was so great, but because it was familiar. Familiar fear. Familiar pain. Familiar struggle. Even misery can feel like home when you've decorated it with enough reasons to stay. But right now, in this moment, you have a choice. So here it is, the method. It doesn't have a fancy name. It's not a trendy technique. What part of your current identity are you finally ready to let go of, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's familiar? Let me know in the comments. Your answer might be your first real jump. This process is a conscious realignment, and it happens in 3 parts. Part 1. Witness. Begin by sitting in complete presence with the version of yourself you're ready to release. Let them speak. Let them be seen, not judged. Seen. Most timelines don't disappear because we fight them. They fade because we outgrow them with grace. So instead of resisting your old self, witness them fully. That's how you begin to loosen the thread. Part 2. Sever. This is where you shift the entanglement. Say it out loud, or say it in your mind. This is no longer who I am. I release this version. I collapse this observer. You'll feel resistance, and that's okay. It's natural. The old self will fight for its life. But it only has power if you still believe its voice is your own. Recognize it for what it is. A fading echo. Nothing more. Part 3. Choose. Once the field is clear, choose your new identity. But don't just think about it. Become it. Stand like them. Breathe like them. Make decisions from their energy. Don't just ask, what would the version of me who has everything do? Instead, ask, what does that version no longer tolerate? And stop tolerating it. Now, these steps aren't part of a ritual. They're not a one-time trick. They are a new way of being. Every breath, every choice, every moment is a reinforcement of your new entanglement, and over time, not years but in energetic cycles, the field will begin to shift, because it has to. That sips the law of quantum mechanics. The observer collapses the wave into a particle. Reality reshapes itself around the identity of the observer, but only when that identity is consistent. And here's the beautiful part, the version of you who already lives that dream life. They set not some far-off fantasy. They spurn not a future you. They are a memory written into your energetic field, a path that's still active, just waiting for you to walk it again. Soon we'll talk about what happens after the jump. Because jumping isn't the end, it's the beginning. It's the start of recalibration. And without that recalibration, even the biggest leap can fall apart under the weight of old programming trying to crawl its way back in. But for now, just sit with this question. What parts of me am I still letting make decisions in my life, even though I've outgrown them? And more importantly, do they still deserve to speak on behalf of who I am now? Take a deep breath, not just for your lungs, for your timeline. Because if you've made it this far in the video, you've already done something most people never dare to try. You've questioned the authority of your own past. You've challenged the identity that's been holding the pen and writing your reality. That alone shifts the field. You may not feel like you've jumped yet, but make no mistake, you've already moved. Something cracked open. A thread loosened, a signal was sent. And that's how every quantum leap begins. Not with fireworks, but with frequency. And that brings us to this moment. You did it. You collapsed the old self. You released the version of you that kept you stuck in loops. You stood, even if just for a few minutes, inside a new identity. And in that moment, the field adjusted. A new observer took the lead. But now comes the part no one talks about: the recalibration. Because quantum jumping isn't just about stepping into a new timeline, it's about becoming stable in it. And just like any system that's been running on one frequency for years, when you install a new operating identity, there's going to be noise. You still start to notice strange things. People will respond to you differently. Not because you said anything new, but because they feel something's changed. Energy always comes before language. Your behavior will shift, subtly but surely. What's one old habit or belief you're no longer willing to let speak for your future? Drop it in the comments and take your power back. Some conversations will no longer resonate. Some relationships will shake. Not because you're rejecting them, but because they're still tuned to the old version of you, the one you just let go of. But here's the part most people don't expect. The old timeline may try to pull you back, not as punishment, not as failure, but as a vibrational echo. You might suddenly feel overwhelmed, emotional, or uncertain, not because you're wrong, but because you've stepped out of a familiar frequency and your nervous system is still trying to catch up. That step's completely normal. Imagine a radio that's finally changed the station after years of static. At first, the signals overlap. There's noise, confusion, ghost frequencies from the past. And in the middle of that noise, the old identity might whisper, "See, nothing set's changed. You set still the same." That sets the test. But it's not a test of strength. It's a test of clarity. Because reality doesn't shift cleanly. It shifts quantumly. The moment you step into a new state, everything that doesn't match it begins to fall away. And what's falling away will often fight back before it disappears. This is the moment where most people undo their jump. They slide back into the old observer. Not because it felt better, but because it felt familiar. So how do you stay inside the new timeline? You don't strut force it. You don't step fake it. You anchor it. Anchoring doesn't mean repeating affirmations all day. It doesn't mean pretending everything's perfect when it's not. It means responding to life from your new identity, even when the world hasn't caught up yet. This is the real test of coherence. When your bank account still shows lack, but you respond with abundance. When your relationship still feels stuck, but you speak from wholeness. When fear shows up, and you meet it as your highest self, not your oldest one. Every time you make that choice, in thought, in feeling, in action, you stabilize the field. Because in the quantum realm, effort isn't what matters. Consistency is. The universe isn't testing you, it's listening to you. And every subtle signal you send tells it exactly who you believe yourself to be. So instead of asking, why hasn't my new reality shown up yet? Ask yourself, what version of me have I been reinforcing today? That's where the jump becomes real. Not in the moments of inspiration, but in the moments of doubt. When you choose again, and again, and again, to be the one you decided to become. And yes, you will wobble. You will forget. You'll collapse back into old patterns from time to time. But each time you remember, each time you take a breath and return to your new identity, you retune the field. Eventually, the old frequencies lose their grip. They fade. And what once felt like effort becomes effortless. What once felt forced becomes obvious. Used to not faking it till you make it. Used to feeling it until you stabilize it. And that sips a powerful difference. At some point, you'll look around, almost without realizing it, and see that your external world has changed. Not because you pushed harder, but because you became unshakable in your frequency. You stopped reacting from lack. You stopped negotiating with limitations. You stopped giving airtime to the voice inside you that never believed in your potential. And when that voice no longer dominates your channel, reality has no choice but to rewrite the script. So here's what I want you to sit with before we move on. What parts of your old self are still trying to speak for the life you're no longer living? And are you still listening? What's one small choice you can make today that your future self, the best version of you, would choose? It doesn't have to be a big leap. Just one simple shift, one moment of alignment. Because sometimes that's all it takes to start changing everything. In the next few minutes, we're going to close the loop. We'll talk about how to live with steady awareness, not jumping into a new life, but becoming someone new from the inside out. This isn't about trying harder. It's about allowing everything inside you to slow down, settle, and realign. It's where the new version of you finally feels natural, not like something you're faking, but like someone you've always been. The more you choose peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, the more that identity becomes real. The mask falls away. You stop feeding the old patterns and start living as the version you used to only imagine. You don't force it. You simply stop pretending to be someone you're not. That's what true integration feels like. Your decisions become quieter, but more powerful. You stop reacting from fear and start responding from truth. Old thoughts and habits, they fade because they no longer belong in your energy. They were just leftovers from a version of you that no longer exists. This is what it means to make the quantum shift real, not as a theory or dream, but as your daily life. You'll begin to notice that things which once triggered you no longer affect you. Emotions may rise, but they pass without taking over. You move differently, speak differently, not because you're trying to be someone new, but because you've finally come home to yourself. The change feels real because it is. And no, it's not magic. It's your awareness, your breath, your choices, again and again. As you shift, the world around you begins to shift too. People, opportunities, synchronicities, all start to reflect who you are now. Reality isn't rewarding you, It's simply matching your energy. So what's next? You live it. You wake up, you walk, you feel. And when life challenges you, and it will, you pause and ask yourself, which version of me is being called forward right now? That's the key. You're not meant to live from control. You're meant to live from your true signal. And the more you align with it, the clearer it gets. Because in truth, you didn't leap into a new life. You collapsed the illusion that you were ever separate from it. The life you've been visualizing wasn't far away. It was already connected to you. You just had to stop ignoring that connection. Now the only thing left is to live as if this version of you is normal. Because when it becomes your normal, it becomes your reality. Your timeline doesn't shift through effort. It shifts through embodiment. So take a breath. Feel into your body, not what you wish was true, but what you already know is true. That's your signal. That's your anchor. That's your proof. And before you go, I want to ask, what's one part of your new reality you're ready to claim right now? Drop it in the comments, not as a dream, but as a declaration. Let it be the signal that tells the universe, I'm already living it. Because when you name it, you not only activate it in yourself, you inspire others to step into their truth too. This is how we shift timelines. Together.